$21 billion. That is Eli Lilly's total capital commitment to Indiana since 2020, and $4.5 billion of that was just confirmed for two sites right here in Lebanon, Boone County. If you are running a manufacturing operation anywhere in central Indiana, whether you're in packaging, precision components, industrial services, skilled trades, utilities, or logistics, what is happening in Lebanon right now is one of the most significant demand signals your operation is going to see this decade. And I want to make sure you're not sleeping on it. So here's what we're covering today. Lilly officially opened its first dedicated genetic medicine manufacturing facility on May 6th. The Lebanon API site, which is still under development, is on track to open in 2027 as the largest active pharmaceutical ingredient production site in U.S. history. And a third site, the Lilly Medicine Foundry, is still to come. 3 facilities, 1 campus, 1 county. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through what's already opened, what's coming, and what the economics actually look like for Indiana suppliers, and the questions you need to put in front of your team before the procurement window on that 2027 API opening closes without you. We have been tracking the Eli Lilly Indiana story on TEG Daily since April 17th, when Governor Braun signed a non-binding letter of intent for Lilly to explore nuclear power options, and it has continued to develop every week since. We first covered the Lebanon opening on May 8th, and today I want to go deeper on what the new investment figures actually mean for Indiana manufacturers. So here is the deal. On May 6th, Lilly announced an additional $4.5 billion committed across 2 of its 3 Lebanon campus sites. Lilly Lebanon Advanced Therapies, which opened that same day, and the in-development Lilly Lebanon API plant. That brings the company's total Indiana capital commitments since 2020 to more than $21 billion. Their U.S. commitments since 2020 now exceed $50 billion. CEO David Ricks put it plainly in the announcement. He said, when our Lebanon API site opens in 2027, it will be the largest API production site in U.S. history. Commitment we chose to build here at home. That is not a press release line. That is a facility specification with a delivery date, and it has procurement implications right now. Now, here is what the economic multiplier looks like in practice. According to a report commissioned through Indiana University's Kelley School of Business and its Indiana Business Research Center, Lilly accounts for 70% of Indiana's pharmaceutical GDP. Every Lilly job supports more than 2 additional jobs across the state, and the company estimates that for every dollar it spends locally, up to $4 in additional local economic activity is generated. So when you hear $4.5 billion going into Lebanon, you're not hearing a $4.5 billion story. You're hearing an $18 billion story for the surrounding regional economy when you run the multiplier. Now, Governor Mike Braun framed it this way. He said, Indiana is reinforcing its position as a prime destination for life sciences and advanced manufacturing, spanning innovation, production, and global distribution. That is state-level signal that the policy and incentive environment around this sector is certainly not going away. So here's what to watch. The Lebanon API site's progress toward its 2027 opening is your primary indicator. That opening will trigger the next wave of equipment procurement, staffing ramp up, and utility load increases in Boone County. If you have not started positioning your operation as a potential vendor or contractor for that campus, you're already behind the curve. This story continues to develop, and the details on what's actually being produced at this campus matter more than the headline dollar figure for most Indiana plant leaders. Lilly Lebanon Advanced Therapies is Lilly's first dedicated genetic medicine manufacturing facility anywhere in the world. It opened May 6th in Lebanon. The facility is designed to support both clinical and commercial production of therapies that target disease at the genetic level. It will include what Lilly describes as a full spectrum of genetic medicine modalities, from research stage development all the way through large-scale commercial supply. And here is the part that matters for any operator thinking about supplier qualification. Building this facility required Lilly to develop entirely new manufacturing processes with no established commercial precedent. These are not existing production lines just scaled up. They are genuinely new processes being deployed at commercial scale for the first time ever. That level of technical complexity creates two things simultaneously. It creates long term employment stability because once these processes are running and qualified, Lilly's not moving them. And it creates recruitment competition for the specialized engineers and technicians who can operate equipment and operate it at that level. Now, across the campus at the Lebanon API site, the production lines are more familiar in form but extraordinary in scale. That facility, opening in 2027, will produce tirzepatide injectables, which are already the most prescribed injectable medications for weight management and type 2 diabetes in the country. It will also produce Foundayo, Lilly's first FDA-approved once-daily oral pill for weight loss, and retatrutide, an investigational medicine currently in late-stage development for obesity and cardiometabolic disease. Lebanon Mayor Matt Gentry said it well. Lilly has been an incredible partner, and their decision to further invest in our community ensures that Lebanon will remain at the forefront of the pharmaceutical industry for decades to come. The third site, Lilly Medicine Foundry, was announced October 2nd, and its timeline is still developing. But the full campus picture is 3 facilities, each with distinct production purposes, each requiring distinct supplier, maintenance, and infrastructure relationships. So here's what to watch. Keep an eye on Lilly's procurement and contractor announcements tied specifically to the API site ahead of 2027. That is where the near-term supplier opportunity is most concentrated. The Lilly Medicine Foundry timeline is the longer horizon item to follow. For Indiana manufacturers in packaging, precision components, industrial services, and specialized maintenance, the question your team needs to answer is whether your current offering aligns with the specifications of a genetic medicine and advanced pharma campus. If there is a gap, the question is whether there's a realistic path to qualification before that 2027 API opening. So I'm going to pull back for a minute and talk about what a build out of this scale actually does to the surrounding environment. Because if your facility's in Boone County or anywhere in the central Indiana corridor, this is not just an Eli Lilly story, it's your story. A campus of this size, 3 facilities, $21 billion committed since 2020, a target opening of the largest API production site in U.S. history. Well, it draws every shared resource in the county: workforce pools, skilled trades, utility capacity, road and logistics infrastructure. These are not unlimited resources, and when a single employer of this scale is drawing on them simultaneously with your operation and your needs, the competition for each of them goes up pretty significantly. Now, on workforce, the Kelly School data confirms that every Lilly job supports more than 2 additional jobs statewide. That is a net positive for the region's economic base, but it also means that the pool of skilled engineers, technicians, and manufacturing operators you're recruiting from is being drawn toward a well-capitalized employer with a long-term commitment and high complexity work. So if you're already competing for talent in central Indiana, that competition intensifies as Lebanon campus ramps toward full operation. On utilities and infrastructure, a facility of this scale, pharmaceutical manufacturing at commercial scale, genetic medicine production, API synthesis, carries enormous utility load: power, water, industrial gases, wastewater treatment. As Lilly Lebanon API ramps up toward its 2027 opening, utility load in Boone County is going to increase substantially. If you're on the same grid infrastructure, and you likely are, then that's worth monitoring. Load growth at this scale is the kind of thing that can affect transmission and distribution capacity planning for the entire area over a multi-year horizon. On the supply chain opportunity side, the multiplier works in your favor if you're positioned correctly. Up to $4 of local economic activity for every dollar Lilly spends in the area. The question is whether your operation is in the flow of that spending or watching it go to out-of-state vendors. Governor Braun's continued engagement, from the April nuclear letter of intent to his commitments at the May 6th opening, makes clear that the state is actively invested in keeping Lilly's supply chain relationships in Indiana wherever possible. And that is your opening if your capabilities are a fit. Now, today you're looking at a single story with 3 compounding layers: a facility that opened with no commercial precedent, a second facility opening in 2027 as the largest of its kind in U.S. history, and a third site whose timeline is still developing. All in one county, all drawing from the same regional workforce, infrastructure, and supplier base. So what the stories add up to is this: Boone County, Indiana is in the middle of a multi-year advanced manufacturing build-out that will intensify workforce competition, utility infrastructure demand, and supplier qualification standards for every operation in the central Indiana corridor. The economic multiplier is real. It's up to $4 of local activity per dollar spent, but only for the operators who are positioned to actually capture it. Today's bottom line is this: Lebanon, Indiana is now the center of one of the most consequential pharmaceutical manufacturing buildouts in U.S. history. And if your operation has any capability in packaging, precision components, industrial services, skilled trades, or utilities, the procurement window for the 2027 API site opening is open right now. Now, obviously, I don't run your plant. You do that. My real job as CEO of Tactical Energy Group is to stay on top of everything that changes the cost and reliability of your power and the economics of making things in Indiana, so we can build the right products and programs for the manufacturing community. But while I'm doing that work anyway, this brief is my way of giving you as much of that insight as I possibly can so you can spend more time running your operation and less time trying to decode your bills and understand rate cases and interpret headlines. So I'll give you a few questions you can take straight into your next morning huddle. These are not abstract strategy questions. The 2027 API site opening is less than 2 years away, and procurement qualification timelines for a facility of this scale typically run 12 to 18 months minimum. The window is open, but it's not going to stay open indefinitely. So the first question is this: given Eli Lilly's $4.5 billion expansion in Lebanon and the 2027 opening of what will be the largest API production site in U.S. history, where does our operation sit in that supply chain? And are we actively pursuing qualification as a vendor, contractor, or service provider for that campus? Second question is this: Lilly's economic data says each dollar spent locally generates up to $4 in local economic activity. Are we tracking the workforce and infrastructure developments happening in Boone County closely enough to anticipate how they will affect our own hiring, utility costs, and logistics costs over the next 2 to 3 years? It's a very important question. Third question is this: Lilly Lebanon Advanced Therapies is producing genetic medicines and novel therapies with no established commercial precedent. Does that level of manufacturing complexity create any talent recruitment competition for the specialized engineers and technicians we depend on in our own facilities? That is today's brief. One story, but the implications run across supply chain positioning, workforce competition, utility infrastructure, and state policy, and every Indiana manufacturer in the central Indiana corridor has a stake in how this develops. If today's brief was useful to you, make sure you like and subscribe. We put out a new brief every weekday, and the Eli Lilly Indiana story is going to keep developing as we move forward toward that 2027 API site opening. I will be tracking every procurement announcement, workforce development, and infrastructure update that touches this campus. I am Daniel Burke. This is TEG Daily Indiana Manufacturing News, and I will see you tomorrow.